Some would say we never become fully actualized until we heal the emotional and psychological traumas of our past.
They would be wrong. We would say, in an effort to heal the psychological and emotional traumas of past, you have to focus there. And as you focus upon those psychological and emotional traumas of your past, you activate the vibration of them. And since life has caused you to go so much further, you just use that as your current excuse not to keep up with who you are. And you can cause an indefinite rift. That is not to say that those traumas didn't cause expansion. But now the work is to do your best to turn yourself in the direction of the expansion and stop trying to explain how the expansion came about. Here's the best way to hear that. This conversation about the vortex makes it easier to explain everything. Do you like it?
Yes.
So, can you hear us when we say, the problem is always outside the vortex. The solution is always inside the vortex, and they're very different frequencies. So if a person is asking the question, addressing the problem over and over and over and over, then they're holding themselves in a chronic state outside of the solution, you see. However, if you do that long enough, for every moment that you hold yourself outside the vortex, experiencing the trauma or the struggle or the problem, you're launching more rockets. And as you launch more rockets of desire, the larger part of you is expanding. So this calling gets stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. And so it is possible to ask and ask and ask and ask and ask and ask and ask from outside the vortex until you've got a really strong calling, and then it is possible to distract yourself for a moment from the problem, and the vortex will take you in. In other words, picture this vortex. So here it is spinning. There's a powerful attraction going on. Everything that you are and everything that you desire, everything that you have become is there. And you're in despair, nowhere near it. Well, the solutions are there, but you can't find them. The answers are there, but you can't find them. What you want is in there, but you can't see it. The path isn't clear for you at all. Let's say you're in revenge. You're a little closer, but you still can't see it. Let's say you're in anger and less anger. You're closer, but you still can't see it. Let's say you're distracted. You're petting your cat, or you're having a massage, or you're at a ball game. You're doing something where you're not keeping all of that activated. So you're in a place of satisfaction or joy about, it doesn't matter what. You've just, for this moment, deactivated that thing that's keeping you away. Now the vortex can take you. So the vortex takes you in, and it's unfamiliar to you. You have a sort of feeling of elation. You feel a little disoriented because you're not used to being in there, but something wonderful happens, and now you feel a little more.
And we can't.
When the truth of it is, well, they do, if you, say it again. Some would say that these perceived problems limit potential, but the only reason that they do is because you're still perceiving them. You're still keeping them active in your vibration. So these some that you are saying would say that by going back and looking at them and resolving them, you could leave them in a different place. Well, that's an entirely different situation. In other words, here's the thing. Let's be fair to this whole discussion. You are where you are. That's profound, isn't it? I am where I am. I've got these habits of thought, and because I've got these habits of thought, I've got this chronic vibration going on. So law of attraction's bringing me this life. What's manifesting in my life is an indicator of how I'm vibrating. You just can't get around that. And if how I'm living is different than what I want, then there is this gap between who I really am and who I'm letting myself be. So if your intention is to, from where you are, which is the only place you can be, to reach for the best feeling thoughts you can find, what happens is, little by little, you find yourself more and more in the direction of, and eventually inside the vortex. Jerry tells a story where he couldn't bear the idea of eating green beans. And when someone offered them to him, he always said, "No, thank you. I eat about anything, but not that," he said. And one day, after refusing the best looking green beans ever, grandmother had grown them in her garden. She had carefully cut them and prepared them, and there they were on the table. And grandfather could not believe that this ridiculous boy, a man really, was going to refuse the best green beans in the whole world. And Jerry said, "I just don't like them." And he said, "Do you know why?" Jerry said, "No." He said, "When you were a baby, your mother read an article that green beans were good for you. So you had green beans for breakfast, and green beans for lunch, and green beans for dinner, and green beans for breakfast, and green beans for lunch, and green beans for dinner. We all thought you would be green," he said. "Green beans, green beans, green beans." And when Jerry heard that, he said, "Oh, well, let me try some green beans." So there was a resolution from that past. Is that what you're getting at?
In a way.
Well, that's as far as we'll go with that. Because, in other words, in your now, look at it this way. Do you accept that there are two vibrational aspects to you and to everyone who is physically focused? So, and do you accept that the larger part of you has expanded into places that the rest of you hasn't quite caught up with? And do you acknowledge that the better you feel, the more in alignment you are with that broader part of you? And so anything that you do that brings a feeling of relief and closes that gap, anything that you do is beneficial. And there are a lot of tools and techniques and processes that different people use along the way. There are techniques that a person who is in chronic despair, there are techniques that can help a person in chronic despair that would be ridiculous for someone who's just hanging around in frustration or overwhelmment. It really depends upon where you are on the emotional scale. And so it really isn't fair